Hi, my name is Tanya and I'm autistic. I have a message today which consists of 4 parts. And they relate to autism awareness and autism acceptance. I want to begin with autism as a disability. There are many people who see disability as a shame and they will say, I don't see myself as disabled, or as I don't see you as disabled. We need to understand this term disability to understand why it benefits us and why it's important to emphasize autism as a disability. I'm working with the approach taken by the United Nations Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities. Broadly speaking, a disability is when somebody is different in some way, or impaired, or perceived as impaired. Impairments would mean like if your body is damaged in some way, if your brain is damaged in some way. Those could be examples of impairments. And perceived impairments is when somebody is different, but other people see them as damaged. So the differences. But disability is when those impairments in interaction with societal attitudes place those people at a disadvantage. That happens to autistic people. Autistic people are placed at a disadvantage. The world is not designed to help us to fit in very well. And because of that interaction between our differences, whether you regard them as errors or whether you regard them as mere differences, it makes no difference. We still experience this discrimination largely. And that's what disability is. So are you being discriminated against because of your differences, because of differences in your body, your mind, and how you think? Then you have been disabled by society and you have rights accruing to you as a result of this United Nations Convention. So that's on point number 1, autism as a disability. The second one flows from this. That United Nations Convention, or the UNCRPD as it's called for short, is based on a principle of nothing about us without us. In other words, if you're making decisions, if you're deciding what's good for autistic people, you need to involve autistic people. Now, you can't just have an organization which is supposed to be serving autistic people and then maybe elect one autistic person to that so that you can say, well, we involved autistic people. It doesn't work that way. That would be okay if you had just a service organization. But if you're making decisions about what's good for autistic people, if you're trying to influence government, for example, this is not good enough. A representative organization has more than 50% of the people with that relevant disability on the board. In other words, you'd need to have more than 50% of your board members would have to be autistic if you were trying to represent autistic people. So how do you cut through all of this if you're not, you don't have an organization, I'm just an ordinary teacher, or I'm a parent, and I want to do good for autistic people. How do I implement the same principle? Well, here it is. It's quite simple. You listen to as many autistic people as possible. You read what they've written. You listen to poor people who are autistic. You listen to people of different races who are autistic. You listen to people with different gender and sexual orientation, people with different ages. And that flows into, that was number 2, listen to as many as possible. It flows into number 3. Many autistic people do not speak, do not communicate with ease. It means that if we're going to listen to as many as possible, whether we are a doctor, whether we're some kind of therapist, whether we're a parent, whether we're another autistic person who wants to do good for the world, whether we're an organization, whether we're government, we need to listen to as many as possible, but some do not communicate with ease. So what do? Do you listen to those who speak for them? Well, you can listen to those who speak for their rights, but you actually need to listen to the people themselves who communicate with difficulty. How do we do that? Well, if we listen to those who communicate with difficulty about what helped them to communicate with greater ease, it's going to give us a clue as to how to listen to the other ones as well. And you know what we'll find? We will find that there are millions of people on our planet who are being denied the right to communication because those who can, the few who've broken through those barriers, who've been given those enablements in the face of great disabling systems, those who are speaking out against these barriers are not being heard enough. So if we're going to regard autism as a disability, If we're going to listen to as many autistic people as possible, not just those who necessarily say what we want and what we like and what endorses what we're already doing, if we enabling communication according to what those who have struggled with communication have said has worked for them, and you're listening to as many as possible because the communication disabilities are not all the same and the methods that work are not all the same. If we do those three, we're going to create greater awareness of the struggles of autistic people, the real ones. We're going to create greater acceptance because that's the message that's going to come out there. Listen to how things work with me, how I can be accommodated better, and also how I can contribute to society better. These are the messages that will come out of there if we listen to as many autistic people as possible, and if we're enabling communication according to the ways that people, for example, who do not speak, say works for them. Those three things are the things that are going to take us forward. So what's the fourth thing? Well, there are many autism experts out there. There are many moms who've written books. There are people who are talking about autism. Are they doing those three things? Are they looking at the UN Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities? Are they listening to as many autistic people as possible, or have they handpicked themselves a few that they like and that kind of, fit in with their narrative? Are they enabling communication according to the ways that work for non-speaking people and other autistic people who have greater communication disabilities? If not, then point 4 kicks in. Then we should not listen to those people because they are not listening to us. Please spread this message. It's important. It can change the world for people who really, really need it and who've been marginalized.